All right, it is 3:05. So anyone else who trickles in, I'll let them in, but we're going to kick things off here. So I'll share my screen in a second. I just want to do an introduction. So my name is Elliot with Empirical 360. We are a digital marketing company who specializes in lead generation and digital marketing for attorneys' offices. Sorry, let me just lower my volume here. So yeah, we specialize in attorney marketing for obviously attorneys, and getting leads is half the battle. You know, it's something that obviously we're very passionate about, but the other half of that battle is intake and obviously answering the phones and reaching out to customers. And you know, throughout kind of us working with our clients, you know, we sometimes listen to their phone calls when they give us permission to kind of see, you know, how the leads are performing, because we obviously want to optimize lead quality. And one thing that we always notice is the firms that have stronger intake, or that, you know, answer the phones, you know, in a nice, courteous way, and rather than just order take, they always perform better from, you know, a sales standpoint. I know we don't like to think of it as necessarily sales, but they do get more out of our leads when they, you know, they have a strong intake process. And, you know, me and Manny had been talking for months actually before we even put this webinar together. And because we were interested in intake for our clients. And, you know, we were asking a few of our clients, oh, who do you use for intake? Because, you know, you're doing very well. And the name LEX kept popping up. So we were like, oh, well, that's great. So, you know, I'm already talking to Manny, and I reached out and I asked her, I was like, Manny, would you want to do a webinar for our existing clients and, you know, potential clients, just to help them with their intake process? Because like I said, it's a massive, massive part of this thing. And she was like, yeah, so we put this together, and, you know, Manny is going to go through, it's a very short presentation, and we'll open it up for Q&A. She's going to go through some slides just on the best practices for an intake and how to improve that process. And any questions you guys have, you can hold till the end, and, you know, we'll be more than happy to answer to the best of our ability. So without further ado, Manny from Lex Reception, I'm going to share my screen here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And I do thank you for this opportunity. It's difficult to get in front of so many people at the same time. So we really are grateful for this opportunity.
All right. Can everyone see the screen?
They're sharing their screen.
Oh. So they don't have no.
Yeah, batteries. We can This is all about getting.
So
Manny, can you actually unmute yourself? I just muted everyone just in case. But if you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So I do see your screen.
Can everyone else, you could drop it in the chat there. If you can't see the screen, let me know. Let me see. Yes, all good. Mute other participants. Yes, they're muted. All right, everyone can see. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good feedback there. And again, hold questions till the end, and we could drop them in chat and we'll answer them. So I'm gonna let Manny take over. If you guys need me to increase, I'll just present here.
Okay, wonderful. I'm just gonna go ahead and bring up my notes here. Notes are always great, and we actually go over notes.
Yep. So I have, sorry, Manny. I have one more little intro. Again, this kind of supports the message that I was talking about. So sure. I pulled up two studies from HubSpot and Harvard. For those of you that don't know, HubSpot is a massive CRM company. They specialize in pretty much CRM and sales. And they did, you know, they pulled a couple studies. Call Hippo identified a 450% difference in response time for leads receiving a follow-up call within an hour of submitting an inquiry. So just that first hour makes a massive difference of when you follow up with, you know, potential customers. So people filling out a form or people filling out a chat. Obviously, inbound calls, there's a different dynamic. And then Velocify, which is another massive calling company, they notice a 390% increase in contact rate if you call that person within 1 minute. And I know that sometimes that may seem a little overwhelming, 1 minute with a lot of things going on, but that's just the power of getting to that person first. And from our perspective, you know, we do a lot of Google ads. And if you think about it from the consumer standpoint, they're just clicking down the list of potential people they want to work with, and kind of whoever gets there first is going to be, you know, the runner up, or the person most likely that they'll do, you know, business with, if obviously it's a good, you know, experience. And then the last one is a Harvard study. Customers who were contacted within an hour were 7 times more likely to have a good conversation than those who did it within 60 minutes, and then 60 times more likely than those companies who waited 24 hours. So if you're letting your lead sit, you know, for a long time, then, you're missing out on potential opportunities. So
Right.
those are just a couple of little studies there that, really show how important the intake process is.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think what's starting off, the most simplest thing I can say is just answer the call, and that's actually on the next slide. Elliot, it's like our director Bree says, your competition really is voicemail. And 80% of your callers don't even leave a voicemail because they don't trust that their voicemail is going to be even heard. And furthermore, that their call will even be returned. So answer the call because your competition is voicemail. But when you're answering, there's a difference in the way that you answer as well. You can answer with, "Thank you for calling ABC Law Firm. This is Manny. How may I help you?" Or you can answer with a smile and say, "Thank you for calling ABC Law Firm. This is Manny. How may I help you?" When that tone is set, it makes the call so much smoother. And Elliot, you had some numbers as far as how much one missed call that is actually worth.
Yeah. And so, like Manny said, just simply answering the call can save you a lot of money. So if you're in PI, depending on your geographic region, that lead could cost you $100 to $200, sometimes more if it's a very competitive market. If you're in family law, average lead cost is $25 to $35, and this is off Google. Estate planning, you're looking at like $40 to $50. Business, $40 to $50. So, if you miss a couple calls in a row, that number can really add up, and it's just, it's a crime to let those go, and it's just simply answering the phone is all you have to do to maximize that cost.
Right, absolutely. And we do want to talk in the next slide about human element. And so, whether you're answering your own calls or you have someone in the office or you have a service like Lex Reception, the person handling the intake, that initial call, should have proper phone etiquette. And what that means is they should sound engaged, empathetic. Mirroring the caller's tone is so important. It isn't always appropriate to be cheerful. If someone just told me about a death in the family, the last thing they want to hear is, "Great, I'd be happy to help you with that. Let's go ahead and get started." That's very inappropriate. So instead of that, an empathetic tone and mirroring the tone would sound more like, "I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. You know what, let me just gather some information to better assist you." From there, we ask that you listen to the caller, let them tell you a little bit about their story, because believe it or not, in their story, there's actually some of the intake. In someone telling me that they had a death in the family, I already know that there's a death in the family. They probably told me what happened, how they heard about you. And so that's actually some of the intake information. So listening is a big deal, especially when they're telling you about their story. And so from there, a pro tip that we have, and we discussed a little bit earlier before the intro, is minimizing distractions. A caller can tell when you're distracted, when you're shuffling through a file, maybe needing to walk someone in. Of course, that was probably more pre-pandemic than anything else. But if you're having to deal with 5 lines ringing at the same time, or there's noise in the background, that distraction can be heard in your voice, and the caller can hear it. They're less likely to begin that relationship of trust with you if they can't even trust you to pay attention on that first call. And that sounds a little bit harsh, I know. But if I'm calling and I want to talk about my divorce and I have maybe 2 minutes to discuss it, the last thing I want to hear is on the other line someone who potentially is coming across like they don't even care.
Yep. Yeah, and then just to add a little tidbit, again, we listen to a lot of calls. When that human element's important, like that, you actually care instead of order taking. When people come across as just, we've heard some calls where it's like name, last name, what's going on. It's not the best first impression, and that's just it's natural to, once you've answered 100 calls in a day, to say, I just can't take this anymore. But I think the human element is massive, and like I said, it's a big
It
difference
is.
when we hear those calls.
It is. It really is a big deal. In the next slide, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. In the next slide, we talk a little bit about what actually goes into the successful intake. And so a lot of what we just discussed already set the tone. The person is beginning to build trust with you. Um, Again, you answered. That's huge. But from there, we need to quickly gather the contact details, because what happens if the phone gets disconnected, or if they're driving, or they have a 2-minute break at work, and you didn't get the phone number, their name even. And so what we suggest is some very simple questions. Instead of like Elliot saying name, phone number, rather than name, maybe try, let me start by asking who I have the pleasure of speaking with today. Or, and may I ask who's calling? With the phone number, one of the best ways to ask is, what is your phone number in case we get disconnected? That sounds a lot better than phone number, you know.
Yeah.
And so from there, have a notepad handy. That notepad, whether you have, a spiral notebook or an electronic notepad, of course, is probably best. Active listening and taking those notes while they're speaking really helps with the intake, but it also helps them feel comfortable. It helps them feel like they don't have to repeat themselves. You're really paying attention, and that active listening really does go into your people skills. So a pro tip here would be, ask for permission, be considerate of the caller's time and your own, really. If you're about to ask for 5 questions, maybe even 10, just depending on how lengthy this intake can be, saying something like, I need to collect some more information in order to better assist you. Do you just have a few minutes for me? Or if it's a lengthier intake, maybe ask for more time. Asking for permission that way just shows a lot of courtesy and that you respect the caller's time. Do you have anything to chime in here, Elliot, on this slide?
No, I think you got it all on that slide.
Awesome. I'm ready for the next one.
Yep, this is it right here.
Awesome. So I will tell you, I have 3 monitors, as I'm sure a lot of people do, and so I'm really focused on the one. And so from there, some intake does take maybe 5 to 20 minutes. And so that goes back to asking for permission, because if you're about to do a 20-minute intake, at least the person knows, okay, I'm going to be spending some time on this call. But it really does help because at least you've made that connection. You have the information you need to get started on the file. And so the next area we wanted to go over is ask the questions that you need to ask, especially specific to the area of law. One thing is just to collect the case type that they think they're calling about, maybe a brief description. But in intake, you might want to ask, for example, with injury, how did it happen? Where did it happen? In some cases, clients have told me that the county matters. And so for LEX reception, when we're building this script, we need to know how in depth you want the initial intake to be. What information helps you at least get started? Build that into that initial intake, and that way whomever is taking care of the call, whether it be LEX receptionist or someone in your office or yourself, you kind of already have it down pat. You already know what you need. And the next area we wanted to discuss from there is your CRM. So with collecting the information that was just mentioned, what's your process? Number one, do you have a CRM like Clio or Practice Panther, others like Salesforce, Lawmatics? Those are all just a few of the, I think there's over 1,500 listed in Zapier that we have integrations with. So if you have a service like LEX Reception, we have the integration to push the data over to your CRM and get the file started for you. But if you don't have that type of service, what can you do on your side to make sure that the intake you just collected is entered into your CRM quickly? And then I think, Elliot, you did want to discuss a little bit about the
Yep.
importance of CRM.
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about the get a commitment, but the CRM.
About to, but then I remembered.
Yeah, the CRM is definitely a huge part. A lot of people think it's, oh, I'll remember it or I'll put it in a Google Sheet. But one thing that you have to take into account is a lot of these leads are going to require follow-up for a few days. And a lot of, again, successful firms I see, they have text message follow-up, they have email follow-up. And what's nice about a CRM is it's going to track all of that, so you kind of know where you left off with that potential client, so you're not kind of asking for duplicate information. And again, it's just a way to stay very organized. And a lot of these CRMs, a main focus is kind of attribution to your marketing channels. So you can see which channels are producing the most for you and things like that. In my case, again, is great. We've actually integrated with that. Centerbase, haven't heard, I can look into it. If you want to hold these till the end, we can definitely touch on them. But yeah, CRMs are huge. And again, they're really good, because if you just get a lead a day, let's say, that may not seem like much, but in 30 days, you have 30 follow-ups and you're still getting new leads. So again, Manny talked about taking notes and having those notes in the CRM. That's going to save you time in the future. So definitely something to consider.
Absolutely. One of our clients recently told us, it was actually a gentleman I had been speaking to for about 3 months. You know, met him at what was the conference? The ALA conference. And so they didn't have anyone to answer the calls after hours, in the evenings and on weekends. And they also hadn't considered integrations with their CRM. And so when they finally hired us, the very first call that they wouldn't have otherwise answered because they didn't have anyone in the evenings and weekends answering the calls, we took the call, did the intake, set the appointment, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then from there, the information was quickly pushed over to the CRM. That was the very first call. And that very first call was worth a $5,000 case. And so, you know, it does work. All the time that we saved the staff as well, Monday morning when the staff walked into the office, again, pre-pandemic, a lot of the work was already done for them. And so that was really nice just to pull up the file and keep working from there. The pro tip that we have here is to get the commitment. And so that goes a little bit into the next slide, in that when you get the commitment, at the end of this, or towards the end of this call, I should say, how are you securing a commitment, whether it be a callback or the initial consult scheduled, maybe even just a scheduled callback. There's calendar systems like Calendly, Acuity. Our very own is actually Setmore. And so some of them are free. They have mobile apps as well. And built into the settings are your email confirmations and invites. Those go out in real time simultaneously to both parties. So both you and your potential new client will get the calendar invite. You don't even have to lift a finger to do that. And then reminders. Reminders are a really big deal to make sure that they remember they have this appointment with you. And so those go out on your behalf as well. So you don't really have to even break a sweat just to get all of those emails and the text message reminders to go out. So that's what I would ask you is what type of commitment are you getting? Even if it's just our pro tip, you know, what's a good time for me to return your call? You know, what's a good time for the attorney to return your call? And notate it, you know, and see if you can actually make that window of time and give them a call back during a time frame that they're expecting it. Because at least by now, if you've followed the steps that we've given you, you've, number one, built some trust. You've allowed them to share their story. You got in the intake that you need to get started, and then now you have a commitment. So with all of that in this, say, 5-minute call, they're less likely to continue calling the rest of the attorneys that they had listed on their list. At that point, they're probably going to put their phone down and continue cooking dinner or whatever it is that they were doing.
Yeah, and just to chime in too, the tools that Manny mentioned, Calendly, Acuity, they're really, really user friendly. They're very, very affordable. And what's nice about them too is they don't double book you, so they integrate with your existing calendars. And you can also put time buffers in there. So like, let's say you had a meeting and your meetings tend to go over, you can have a 5-minute buffer between meetings. And then another massive factor is a lot of them integrate with like Zoom and other conferencing software. So you don't have to go to Zoom and send out a link. It does it all for you. So it saves you a ton of time. And then again, the reminders are huge because, you know, people who have bad show rates, like let's say you're just not having a good show rate for some reason, a texting reminder 2 hours before or 4 hours before, you can set those different frequencies, and it'll just help your show rates. And if you're doing in person again, you know, you can set that to 2 hours before if there's a driving distance to take into account. So highly recommend those tools. And there may be tools that integrate with those different CRMs we talked about. But yeah, definitely, if you have any questions about those or any recommendations, you know, reach out to Manny and myself, and we'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. And towards the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you my booking link. And in my booking link, we actually have a software called Teleport, which is ours as well, under the LEX Reception brand. And you can click either a regular phone consult with me or a video consult with me. And I don't have to send you the video link. It does it for me. I don't have to send you the email reminder. It does it for me. So that's really nice that I can focus on another file, knowing that that's being taken care of in the background for me. So when I'm able to meet with you during our scheduled time, I can just click, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. I can click on the join now link and then essentially just have my video call with you or give you a call at the number that you requested in that appointment. And I'll share that in just a little bit. The next screen, we talk a little bit about other forms of contact. And this was one thing that Elliot and I discussed, is that what if the person doesn't want to call? You know, what happens then? How else can we speak to them or communicate with them? And so the other two ways are by contact form on your website. If you have a contact us form, what's your process there? Does someone actually call them back? Like the very first slide in this presentation, you know, how long does it take you to read the email from the website and then actually make the dial out or reply via email? Usually by the time you get to it or find the email or find the time, they've already called someone else. So, you know, what's your process? If you have, you know, like Lex reception, the way that we work that is it comes directly to our switchboard and we have a receptionist immediately dial out within that minute that Elliot was talking about. If you have someone in your office or virtual office that is, or you're doing it yourself, as soon as you see that ping come in, as soon as you see that email, then go ahead and make the dial out, because if not, they are going to contact someone else. The other contact form is web chat. Number one, do you have a web chat on your website? And number two, how is it handled? Do you have FAQs that, I don't know if you've ever chatted a company and the FAQs don't match any of the questions that you actually had for them?
Yep, all the time.
Yeah, they're talking about Disneyland and I'm, you know, talking about something else, like the sky is gray. It doesn't make any sense. And so with that, have someone actually answer your web chat, whether it's you. There are, I think there are bots that are connected to your app. And so the way that that works is you can answer it yourself if you have time. If not, you know, Lex Reception does have that ability as well to go ahead and handle your web chat in real time with a live receptionist as well. That is following a script to do the intake even over web chat. Anything that we can do on a call, we can do over web chat as well.
Yeah, and just to again put my 2 cents in, if it's worth anything, you know, we see these stats ourselves in our campaigns, and every practice area kind of has a different way of searching. Some people search on desktop, a lot of people search on mobile, and it's different per practice area, believe it or not. But again, you know, some people are not comfortable calling if it's family law and they're trying to be discreet. I have a lot of family law clients who have success with just texting. And they do a lot of their business over text or email. And then web chat, you know, in some of our PI campaigns, 20% of the leads are coming from web chat. So definitely having all these different things accessible is huge. And taking into account, you know, where are your clients doing their research? Is it on a desktop computer where they have the entire screen and they can type, or is it on a mobile phone where they're more likely to call you or text you? So
That's
things like
true.
that should be taken into account. And again, remember, some of these practice areas are like embarrassing or they want discretion. So having that accessibility is huge, which is why it's nice that, you know, they offer all three of these types of things. So,
Absolutely.
yep.
And like I said, if you don't have Lex reception, then what's your process? How can you make this happen so that their contact is immediate? You know, on the next slide, I did want to talk a little bit about Lex reception and our mission. One thing that we told Elliot is we wanted to make sure not to come off as too salesy, you know, in this presentation, because the tips that we're giving you, yes, our receptionists use them. This is part of their training. However, it can work for you if you're taking your own calls or if you have someone taking the calls for you. So with Lex Reception, our mission is pretty simple. You know, we want to help the world work anywhere. We can help with everything from video conferencing software to software where you can work remotely, or as we call it, anywhere. And also, as far as the planet is concerned, every month we do plant one tree for every customer. And to date, we've actually planted almost 300,000 trees. So that, to me, is pretty incredible. To work for a company that really does believe in the planet is a big deal, especially with everything going on right now. So that's we didn't want to come off as buy LEX reception, but we did want to tell you a little bit about what we believe in.
Yeah, and so this is Manny's contact information. There's been some questions come through, and I just want to, kind of recap there. She did give you guys some really, really good tips answering with a smile. I've been told that I don't answer enough with a smile, so I'll try it
Yes,
now.
we discussed that.
Yeah, apparently
Yes.
I'm really abrasive on the phone, but answering with a smile is huge. And then, one thing that we always say is get to that lead really, really fast if you can, and then treat them like a person. It's huge. Like I said, we listen to so many calls where it's a little bit rough sometimes, and you can hear it on the other end. The person's like, do I really, should I keep shopping? And
Right.
then, for solo practitioners out there who maybe can't necessarily do something like LEX right away, there are a lot of automated things you can do to still have this process in place. You can, use automated text messages when someone fills out a form. That's at least a first step in the process. Obviously, having a human do it would be way better, but there are workarounds and things like that. And you can reach out to Manny or myself, and we'd be more than happy to give you some tips on that. So yeah, there's Manny's contact information.
Along
Anyone?
with the booking link that we mentioned, if you click on that booking link, that gives you a perfect example of how a booking link works. Even if you just want to do a test one, just please mark in the comments test so that I don't give you a call at that time. But you can run a test appointment. I'd prefer to actually see your face, and you book a video call with me. But yeah, it's pretty simple. You click on the booking link, and it does everything for me. I could literally be sitting here, you book an appointment, and your email confirmations are going out, the invites are going out, it's being added to my calendar, it's being added to your calendar, and I'm in a webinar.
Yeah, it's great. They're very convenient. I use them too. So there's some questions in here, Manny.
Yes.
Do you take payment? I think some of the people have answered. Anyone have any questions now? I've seen a lot of things come through in the chat. I have a question.
So with payments, I'll answer that one first. With us, the way to, a rule of thumb, if you can get me an outward facing link that doesn't require for us to log in, we can do that for you. LawPay actually works with us really well. They provide you with the link that you can either add to your website or give to us, and we can take your payments that way. So yes, we can.
Perfect. Jonathan asked, will you be sharing the recording slides? Yes, I will. I'll send it out in an email. Same email I've been sending out. I'll send out the link and the recording, and it'll also be on YouTube, and I'll put it on our site, and if Manny wants to put it on theirs. But either way, I'll send it out. Any other questions? I've seen some. So you scheduled directly with lawyer.
Yes, via the booking link.
Okay. Yep. Paul, does that answer that? Perfect. Someone asked, what suggestions would you recommend where you already on the phone with a client and there are other phone calls coming in?
I would be truthful and just explain. Do you mind if I place you on a very brief hold? I have a couple of calls coming in. Your call is very important to me. Would you mind just very quickly, before you place that caller on hold, though, get that contact information in case they disconnect? A lot of people don't like being placed on hold.
There you go. You mentioned LEX syncs with my case. How does that sync work?
So Elliot mentioned that Empirical 360 works with my case.
Yeah, we've integrated with my case before. Do you also go into my case, Manny, and enter in people's information, or is that not one that?
My case, not currently. We don't have an API for them. As soon as they open one up with Zapier, then we will.
Yep. Paul mentioned never place a caller on hold, which is why LEX is so important.
Thanks, Paul.
Very nice, Paul. Do you integrate with Captora?
I can check while we get more questions, and I'll go ahead and check that now.
Stand by, Paul. We're checking on that. Any other questions on intake? Do the websites like Calendly allow for a payment to be made before confirming the appointment? I don't know if Calendly does. I have seen others that do. I think what you could do to kind of bypass that, if there's not a very successful solution, is gate your Calendly link. So pretty much before they can get to the Calendly link, have them pay with something like Stripe. There are some various programs out there where you can have them like set up a payment link. ClickFunnels will probably do it. And then after they've paid, reroute them to your Calendly to book an appointment. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, you can ask me for more information in the chat. There are times when some clients want to talk about their case and it does take more than 20 minutes.
So I would politely interrupt, you know, with that, something like, you know, if I may, I would really love to get you some assistance. I do need to review this information and return your call. You know, rather than keep you on the line, let me just go ahead and, you know, things like that, being very, very polite about it, basically stating I cannot, you know, answer any legal questions on this particular call. This call is just essentially for me to collect the information to get you started. That way the expectation is very clear and that they're not getting a free initial consult on that very first phone call. And one way to control rambling, honestly, is by using empathy and not sympathy. Sympathy encourages it quite a bit, and empathy doesn't. Empathy, it gives that understanding of, I completely understand where you're coming from. I want to get you this assistance. In order to do so, I have to do my job, essentially, is what you're communicating. So Setmore does allow for payment. Currently, it integrates with 2 services. So what we would do on our side is we would collect your payment link and add it to the instructions. May I ask what payment link you're using? And I was responding to Julius.
Yep. I was trying to find the name there.
I use LaPay.
LaPay. Okay, so no, Setmore, within Setmore itself, I can't hyperlink LawPay to take the payment before the appointment. So what we would do on our end is add it to the script itself to make sure that we take the payment and then schedule the appointment. It's rather easy, actually.
Great. And then Russell said, what do you think about Google Voice for Business compared to Ring Central? I'm not really sure on that. Manny, do you have any input on that?
For us, the difference is call forwarding and overflow, meaning with Ring Central, you have the ability to answer the call first, and then if you are unable to answer, it can roll over to LEX reception if that's an option that you choose. However, with Google Voice, the call forwarding is pretty much all or nothing. As soon as you turn it on, it goes directly to us, and you no longer have the ability to answer first. So it's just all or nothing on Google Voice, and with Ring Central, you can kind of dictate the rules on how that can be handled.
And Kyle
Phonage, same thing as Ring Central. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Captora, she answered your question, Paul, there about Captora and Zapier. It doesn't integrate with Zapier, so I don't think they can integrate with Captora.
Well, if you'd like to give me a follow-up call, I can double check with our client services department, because if they have an API, then it's quite possible that we can. So yep. If they do have it, I'd like to double check.
Yeah, Captora does have an API, Manny, so
okay.
it could probably be done. FileVine, she answered the FileVine question that yes, does Setmore allow? You already answered that. Any other, what are the 2 payment processors that Setmore integrates with?
So currently, it was Stripe, and let me just double check the second one. It'll take me just 2 seconds. Square. It's Stripe and Square.
Someone asked, where does Empirical 360 come into play? We are just a marketing company, and we just wanted to have intake as something like an educational process for our clients. So a few of our clients are in here, and I'll be sending them the recording. We just want them to know that intake is huge as far as, having success with marketing, because sometimes, clients will say, hey, the leads are just no good. And we go back and we just ask them, hey, did you call these people, or how did you handle the phone calls? And so just having a successful intake drives their success up, which, makes everyone happier. So that's kind of why we did this webinar, just so they can have a resource that is trusted. Captora has an API. Yes, they do. So Paul, if you wanted to book a call with Manny, she could look into that API integration. We just integrated with that API. So yeah. What are the 2 payment processors? You answered that. Google Voice. If you refer the new G Suite Google Voice service, then it's similar to Ring Central, Vonage, 8x8, and others.
And I answered that, you're absolutely right, except for on the call forwarding side, because we are linking it to a VoIP. For some odd reason, it does require a little bit different setup. Still takes us 2 minutes. It's very easy, but it is an all or nothing. It is, you forward all your calls and you don't have the opportunity to answer them first. But most of our clients forward all their calls over anyway when they'd like. You control the call forwarding. So because we're 24/7, 365, it really is up to you when you send over those calls. The other question was about Clio Grow. I'm actually excited about that question because we are one of the vendors at the Clio event coming up on, don't quote me on this, October 13th. With that, the Clio Grow integration is really neat. There's a lot of information that we can automatically push over to start the file for you. And then from there, we'll use the filter that you've asked us to, whether it be contact or lead. And then Clio has a really neat notification system where it gives you the notification that the file is there ready and waiting for you. And then you can either accept or decline it. And all of that is done in real time. It's so cool.
That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Set more
It sure
does
does.
integrate with Outlook, it looks like. Yep.
Yes.
Any other questions? Keep them coming. Keep them coming. We have till 4 o'clock. If anyone wants to keep going, Google Voice Suites would have to port the entire number for it to work.
So Google Voice, the way that works, it's in the background. We have to pull actually a different phone number, and then we have to give you the code from our side. So it works a little bit differently. I don't want to make it sound like it's difficult because we're one of actually the only competitors that does allow for Google Voice to be one of the phone carriers that our clients have. A lot of our competitors don't have that capability. We thankfully do. So I don't want to come across that it's too difficult. I was just answering the question of what the difference is, and that Google Voice doesn't allow overflow.
Does it integrate with Rocket Matter?
Yes.
Perfect. And then can you guys directly enter directly into Infusionsoft?
Infusionsoft? Yes. Yes. I saw a question about urgent.
Yep. It says, what do you say when a potential, I'm assuming this potential new client is, it is urgent, or they want to know what time the attorney is going to call them back?
So that's a little, that's actually pretty easy to do. Just express that you understand that it's urgent and that it's important, and that you will express that to the attorney. When saying, I'll have the attorney call you right back, that's a pretty big promise, because the attorney may not be able to call right back. And right back to me is 2 minutes. To another person, that may be 20 minutes. And so maybe something like, I completely understand that this is urgent. What I'm going to do is express that in the information that I'm sending to the attorney. I'll make sure to let the attorney know that it is urgent and have your call returned. And then at that point, you haven't made a promise as to the call, the time frame of when that callback will occur, because you might, by doing so, you might overpromise and underdeliver. And this way, they understand you heard them, it's urgent, it's going to the attorney, and their call will be returned. And that way, if the attorney is able to call them back right away, it's impressive.
Yep. Yeah. Kyle Henderson asked, what are LEX reception fees, or is that discussed on the initial call with you? Did you want to?
Yeah, so pricing, we have a pretty simple model, if that is what the question is, right? That's what I'm understanding.
Yep. What is pricing, or is that done on a separate call with you?
We can do that on a separate call. What we'll ask you are things like, what's the call volume look like right now? What's great about LEX reception is that we do not have setup fees.
Okay. And I believe that you guys are month to month, no?
We're month to month, and that's really neat,
Kyle.
because within that, you can actually bump your plan up and down according to your call volume. Sometimes when a campaign hits, the call volume just dramatically increases. You have, you're building your book of business, and all of a sudden you say, okay, that's enough, let's slow it down, and then you can bump your calls back down.
Yep. Yeah, Kyle just started working on this. Hopefully that's the case, right, Kyle? I just set up the Clio Grow integration while sitting here on the webinar. Nice job, Don. Do you integrate with MyCase? I believe that was asked. I don't believe you guys do yet, right?
Right, not currently. But if as soon as they open up the API for us, then we will be able to, just not currently.
Do you have the ability to turn off LEX reception during certain hours?
Yes, you control that. You control the call forwarding through your phone carrier.
Perfect. Was this recorded? Yes, it was, Bree Lopez. Recommended
Just
CRM
sign
for
us.
integration with Ring Central and LEX reception. What's your recommended?
Russell said that he said, I'm hooked. Just sign us up.
Nice. There you go, Russell. Recommended CRM for integration with Ring Central and LEX reception.
That's pretty difficult because all the CRMs are wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just say for that, depending on what other features you're looking for, texting, emailing, things like that, I would try and go with the easiest one to use for emailing. If that's something you're interested in, I would consider the features on that. Do you provide recordings of your calls so we can listen to them for quality assurance?
Yes, so this is an interesting question because our receptionists are always recorded, right? We have their managers and a lot of coaching and training, and that's the reason why the calls are recorded one way. However, we do have dual-sided recorded calls, and that is a free service. You can just toggle it on, and with the message, you'll receive the recording as well. However, your caller will hear before the call starts, this call is being recorded for quality assurance purposes. But that is an option, and it is free.
Nice. Kyle says, set me an appointment. She said, only if you use Setmore. No, I'm just kidding. I'll connect you, Kyle, with Manny over email. QA on the receptionist side is excellent. When we've had issues, their managers are so. Oh, I thought that was a question, but there you go.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Any other questions? CRM questions, intake questions, any crazy stories? No, I'm just kidding. I'll probably get a whole lot from this room.
That's actually a good question. Because we have so many clients here, does anybody have a success story, with LEX reception to share with the group? I appreciate Rebecca and Dawn and everybody's comments. It really helps.
Don says,
hey, Manny, I'll chime in. This is Rebecca Larson.
Awesome.
We
Thank
hired
you.
LEX in February because we realized that our paralegal and our assistant were answering the phones, but it was really sporadic and everybody was going to voicemail. Nobody was getting called back. The onboarding process was painless. It's been the best investment for our business, and the financial outlay is like negligible. The amount of time that we've taken back for our paralegal to bill and our assistant to actually do the stuff that she needed to do pays for itself probably 3 or 4 times over every month.
Wow.
Nice.
Thank you so much for that.
That was nice. And then, sorry, yes, we will be sending this recording to your email. Paul from Davis Miles asked, I wasn't sure how to get pricing. Paul, do you want me to just connect you over email, you and Manny? Yes, he said. And then someone said, one of my clients fell in love with
I know,
one of
I was
those
just reading that.
kept calling back. That's a good one. I have an experience. Let's hear it. Let's hear it, Lori.
Yes, so we use LEX reception. We're a PI firm. We do mass tort. And so after hours, we use it. It's been great. Most times we just get clients that are existing, but we do get some new leads in that do turn into good cases since we've had LEX reception. So I would definitely recommend it if you don't have it.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Impressed with LEX reception so far. Been with them for 20 months. Saves us so much time and helps us focus on law rather than answering calls. Very nice. We love LEX reception. Last October, I was in the hospital and LEX sent them flowers. Mm-hmm. Do you provide stats on how quickly calls are answered?
We do. So in our what we call CWA, when you get your online access, we do have call metrics in place. And so if you need for us to tell you exactly what the percentage is on how fast the calls are answered, just give us a call so we can give that to you. It's not currently built into the metrics, but what is pretty much every aspect outside of that has to do with your calls. The individual call itself, how long it took, what's the overall average duration. You can download your reports into a CSV file. We are a paperless company, so rather than us mailing you reports and you having to wait for them, anytime you have a question, you can just log in or give us a call. Nice.
Russell asked, can you do outbound calling for leads that come in by email?
Yes, and that's actually one of the things we talked about in the presentation. If I probably should have clarified that a little bit more. When the contact form does come in via your website, that is via email, and so that hits our switchboard, and then immediately a receptionist is dialing out.
Yeah, and Russell, that was why I had those stats because a lot of people do fill out a form instead of calling, and that's why we personally recommend Lex is because they answer that or they get to that lead so fast, and that makes a massive difference in contact rate. Again, not losing it to competitors. So this is my first month using Lex Reception. I have more control over my calendar and ability to structure the workday better. I just recently integrated with them, and this is Brian Haskins. Thank you, Brian. I'm also with Empirical and love their marketing. Yep, Brian, we recommended Brian to Lex, and so far it's going very, very well for him. So excited for that. We've only been using it for like a week, and it has been very good for us. We can respond faster to potential clients and don't miss out on calls as much as we did before. It also lets us focus on other stuff without being worried about answering the phone or being available. Reports are awesome, so easy to pull. How many PNCs actually come in? That's nice too. Very nice.
Oh, that's an alarm. That's do
Any
we
other
have a
questions?
bloopers reel? Kidding.
Yeah, I'll put the bloopers reel on. Don't worry.
Well, Don mentioned something as well, and Don, he's amazing. I was at an event in Las Vegas, and I had maybe 3 or 4 people in front of me not having to, but doing my spiel, and Don waited. He waited because he wanted to shake my hand, and he wanted to say hi, and we grabbed a picture together, and so that was really nice. And when we get back to traveling, hopefully we'll be able to meet a lot of our clients again in person at the CLE events. And then you read Gloria's as well. Malai, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's Malay, but yes,
Malay.
it's okay. Thank you, Manny.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Give it a second here. Any other fun Lex stories?
Yeah, so let me pipe up here then in the quiet spot. My
Yeah.
friend Zane Obaji actually referred me to Lex a few years ago. And in talking to him recently, he says that he now has Lex doing all of his answering. Nobody in his office is ever answering the phone.
Wow.
And that has me thinking about that also. I share an assistant with 2 other lawyers here in the office, and sometimes it's busy and she's on the phone, so a call might slip through, and I'm considering having Lex just take all of the calls because, if 3 calls come in at the same time, Lex has it. They'll answer all 3 of them. I know that that'll happen. And then we can call people back, in the next 20 minutes as we sort of clear through them. So it really is fantastic. And I think, my friend Zane is doing great with it. My office mate, Allie, just signed up, I think, with Lex for after hours service. So maybe both of us will relieve Heather and have all of our calls. So it really has been a great service. Like I just did the integration with Clio Grow. I'm not sure why I didn't have that before, but I'm trying to make an emphasis in my office of getting things into Clio Grow. And it'll help if when the call comes in, Lex automatically does that for me, and I don't have to put it in. So that's another reason to have them take all the calls, do that input into Lex or into Clio that we would otherwise have to do. It's just a home run all the way around. It integrates great with Google Voice. I know there've been questions about that. It's a toggle switch in my Google Voice account for when I want Lex to answer and when I want it to ring to all my other lines. It's easy. And Setmore puts it into my calendar. I've been looking at trying to use Setmore for my scheduling also when I schedule appointments because it does send out the emails and texts to the client. So if I just take a call and set something in my calendar, then I still have to email and follow up with the client about that. So I'm trying to figure out how to better integrate something like Setmore when I or my office sets things up. So it's great. Their systems are so much better than mine. It's better to let them handle it.
I appreciate that. I do so much in what you just said. I probably should have let you do the presentation because you just kind of proved every single point.
That was good. Don, we'll be sending your check out. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
no, but really, I will say it's nice to have a specialist do it because this is all they do, whereas, people in the office may be doing other things. And one thing that Don did say, which rung a bell, is the 24-hour aspect to it. From an advertising standpoint, things get less competitive at night. And that's when a lot of people search. So when you restrict your times to just 9 to 5, which is fine, you can still do that. But there is an added benefit of going overnight when people are searching because there's less competition, and that means lower costs. So just a little tidbit in there. Do you have a tutorial for setting up Clio with Lex Reception?
Yes, I was just answering that. One better, we have an amazing client services department, and a lot of our clients can attest to that. And so during your onboarding or any time that you need an integration, basically anything that you need, they actually walk you through it. So they can either jump on a video call with you or a phone call, ask you to be in front of your computer, and then just kind of walk you through it.
Nice.
We've been using Lux for the past 4 months. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We've been using Lux for the past 4 months, and with great success. They answer our phone, all of our phone calls 24 hours a day. And I'm actually the paralegal. I'm also the attorney's wife. I do really everything.
Yeah.
It's been so helpful. They not only answer our calls, take messages, but they're a wonderful gatekeeper. It integrates with both Clio Grow and our calendar with Clio Connect. They will schedule calls. They do a preliminary intake, which is short, and then they will do calls. They will schedule calls for a more thorough intake with me than if they match the criteria that we're looking for. And so it's just been wonderful in the way of, like I said, being a gatekeeper and also, of course, taking our phone calls for us. So I'm able to do things that I'm better at doing, and it's just been wonderful. So
thank you for that. May I ask who I have the pleasure of speaking with?
Oh, certainly, Wendy Donham.
Thank you.
Great. Russell said he's leaving. He's
Russell.
going to call you in a few minutes. Any other questions that we can answer? About to sign off here. If you have other and more in-depth questions, schedule with Manny. She has her Setmore link right there. Manny, you want to drop that in chat?
Yes, absolutely.
Just so they can click on it instead of typing it in.
Did I not?
There you go. Boom.
It's the 3 monitors, I tell you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just on one right now. I'm feeling claustrophobic on just one monitor. Thank you for the information. Thank you guys so much for attending. Last minute questions. Otherwise, we're going to sign off here. I will be sending this in an email shortly. And like I said, if you have any questions, reply to that email. If they're for Manny, I will direct them to her. And if they're for me, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Very nice. All right.
Exactly what I needed. That's music to my ears. It is.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, I'll be sending the email. I would look for the email tomorrow. I got to process this recording, and it'll be in your inboxes tomorrow. Again, reach out with any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Manny.
Bye.